So, Kalita, can you remember anything about the private sector and the public sector? You can remind one of your classmates about it.
Can you repeat that, miss?
If you can remember anything about the private and public sector, like what's the difference between, or if you just remember any general details about it.
Um, the private sector is like owned by it's people who created their own business,
Mm-hmm.
like sole traders, and the public sector is like um businesses who are owned by the government.
Yeah, so that's basically what it is. The private sector are all the businesses who are like owned by, which are owned by individuals or persons who set up their own businesses, persons who have a partnership, companies, cooperatives. That is the private sector. However, the public sector, these are entities that are owned by the government. So, for example, we looked at, like, for example, buses, like transportation, water, electricity. These are usually owned by the government, and these are not necessarily to make profit, but to ensure that the population or the citizens of the country have access to these things. We looked at, excuse me, privatization, and this is basically when a private entity, so a person may decide, you know what, let me buy or let me purchase the 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 transportation sector. Let me set up a business or let me purchase the transportation or the, for example, here in transport board from the government. Because let's say the government could not afford to continue to operate it or to pay its workers. Someone maybe decide, you know what, let me buy this. And then nationalization is when the government takes over a private owned entity. So, for example, let's say water was privately owned and the government or the persons of the country did not like the prices or it was too high and or whatever the case may be, the government would purchase that and that process will be called it's called nationalization. So here we're looking at the types of businesses, and these are basically the types of businesses involved or that are associated with the private sector. So we have here a sole trader, partnerships, the private and public limited companies, cooperatives, and franchises. Today we'll take a look at the sole traders, the partnerships, the cooperatives, and the private and public limited companies. So I have, you can see on the screen, as you can see on the screen, there's a girl here, and she says that she wants to start a bakery. She comes up with the idea, you know what, I want to start a bakery. I know how to bake. I have, skills in baking. I want to start a bakery. What would she need? And this is a question to you all. What would she need?
She would need an income and she would need a plan about what kind of business she want, what kind of bakery, what kind of goods she want to put in the bakery.
So definitely she would need a plan. She would need, you said income, she would need money. That would be in the form of like capital. She would need money to start up. Anything else?
She would need staff.
Yes, she may need staff as the business grows. So she would need employees, she would need a plan, etc. So she will also need like a building or some place to do this to set up this business. She will obviously need equipment. That might be any rollers, mixers, different jars and containers. She will also need things like appliances like ovens, um, things like a sink. She will need these things so that she can bake. And obviously, she would need money to start up um, the business. So she would be a sole trader. And this is the most common form of business. So if you look around, there are persons who own the corner shops, the persons who own the corner shops in your villages, the farmers, the barbers, the hairdressers. These are all sole traders. They're owned by one person, as you can see here. It's very easy to set up. Not lots of paperwork is not required actually. And as you can see here, the examples include corner shops, farmers, barbers, hairdressers, etc. However, you must note, and we must note, as you rightfully said just now, the sole trader can employ people. They can employ people. This does not mean that the people that they employ own the business. They are still, meaning the person that set up the business, they are still the owner of this business. So it is one owner, as you can see in the word sole. One trader, a sole trader. One person owning the business. So here are some advantages. Well, let me ask you all for some advantages instead of just telling you. What are some advantages? What are some of the benefits of this girl here setting up her business? Her being the only owner. Sorry about that. What would be some of the advantages or some of the benefits of her setting up her own business? Let's say you had to set up your own business. What would be the benefits? What are the things that you will be able to enjoy?
More money because when you don't have a lot of staff, you can have more money because it's you one alone and you're getting all that income.
All right. So you don't have to split. Not as you. Yes, you have to pay your workers, but you don't have to split the profits between anybody else because you're the owner. The profits belong to you, right? But you will still have to pay your employees. Kavita, you have any advantages besides not having to share profits?
Um, like you're your own boss. You don't need anyone to make decisions for you. You could make your own decisions.
Yes,
You could
right.
open and close whenever you want.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. So you are your own boss. You do not have to worry about, somebody telling you when to come work, telling you how to do things. You can make decisions for yourself, by yourself. You do not have to take, yes, you can take into consideration the opinions of your staff members because they may be able to help, but you don't necessarily have to do what they say because you're your own boss and you're very flexible. So both of you guys are correct. As I said earlier, it is easy to set up. There's little paperwork required, and this is usually a small business, therefore less capital is required. So you don't necessarily have to, you know, invest so much money as like, if you were doing like a company or a partnership. You are producing on a very small scale in the initial stages, and so you don't need that much startup capital. As Kavita rightfully said, the decision making process is easier because this process is only done by the owner. And what is your name? The the girl that joined us today. Sasha?
My name is Sashana Forbes.
Okay, cool. Right. So as Sasha said, the profits are do not have to be shared. So you get to keep the profits that were made by the business. They're better able to connect with their customers. So in a large scale business, the manager or the owner has many different persons like beneath them. So they have people who manage, people who deal with marketing, people who deal with public relations, people who deal with producing, and so they do not connect with their consumers or customers because of the gap in between there. However, if you are let's say you set up your own bakery, when you have to talk to your customers, when they have to place orders, they can get customized cakes, pastries. So you're better able to connect with your customers. And the last advantage is that the business affairs are kept private. So you do not have to share the financial records to the public. You don't have to share any information with anybody because this is your business and the things will be kept, the affairs of your business will be kept private. Um, what are some of the disadvantages, or what would be some of the disadvantages of having or being a sole trader?
Your business won't go as fast because when there's only one person, you can't make enough sales and enough products.
Yes, in the grand scheme of things, yes. So it's not necessarily that you can't make enough sales or whatever the case may be. It's just that you have to, like, that's relative. You have to compare that to biz. Let's say you're doing a bakery. You start your own bakery and you're competing with somebody like Bisco or Purity bakeries here in Barbados. Well, in Barbados, Purity Bakeries, that's a big bakery. It sells throughout the whole country, but you're competing with them. So you may say, well, yeah, I'm not making that many sales. But in reality, if you look at it from a sole trader's perspective, you may actually be making a lot of sales. But in regards to the point that um, they are is going to be difficult to operate because you, as I said, you're going to have little capital to start up with. So sourcing finances, like getting money, getting loans and stuff like that will be difficult to get, unless you have a hefty bank account and somebody left money for you in their will, and you're going to decide to start up a business with that that would eliminate the whole challenge of finding money to start up a business. But usually it's very challenging to start up because you have to source finance. So that's one of the major disadvantages. Another one is, so we talked about the challenge to raise finance. The other one is having unlimited liability, and this threatens personal possessions. In the next slide, we will see what unlimited liability is. Another disadvantage is that it loses out on benefits that businesses which can do large scale production has. So as I was saying just now, in regards to your point, things like economies of scales where businesses are able to buy in bulk. Large scale businesses can buy in bulk because they have the money to do that. Well, you may have to be, piecing, have to buy, 2, 3, or like five bags of flour, while the large scale business can buy like 100 bags of flour each time. So things like that you have to consider. So that's another disadvantage. The prices are usually higher than those of larger organizations, so that will cause competition, and you usually will lose out on sales because you're competing, as I was saying earlier, you are comparing or competing with larger businesses. So you would have a higher input cost. So since you're not buying in bulk, things may be more expensive. And because you're doing a lot of things on your own, or you only have like 2 staff members, well, the larger business has like 30 staff members and can buy in bulk. Obviously, their cost of production would be lower than yours, and as a result, they can charge their customers at a lower price than you can, right? Another disadvantage is if the owner falls sick or they go on vacation, this will affect the operation of the business. And a narrow range of skills, there's only one owner, so there's no diversity in terms of skills. And if mistakes are possible and you may not have anyone to consult with to give you advice or anything of the sort because you own the business and you make the decisions, etc. etc. Pause. What's this? Oh, right. So we were looking at unlimited liability, or we mentioned unlimited liability, and it says that sole traders usually have to draw on their own resources to start up a business. And this may be in the form of personal savings, as I said, loans from a bank, family members, or credit cards. So the owner of the business is responsible for repaying any loans. So if they're unable to do this, so let's say you borrow money from the bank and you go bankrupt, or you cannot pay back the loan when it is due, or whatever the case may be, the business, the possessions of the business, and even your personal possessions can be sold to repay the loan. So you have, and as the word suggests, unlimited. So there is no limit on what you can or what you have to sell to get that money to pay back the bank. You have to pay. You have to pay with whatever you have. So if you're a sole trader, you want to avoid this as avoid having to, or avoid run into a situation where you have to, where you're unable to pay your debts or your loans or repay your loans. You want to avoid that as much as possible. This is unlimited liability. Then we have limited liability, and this is not associated with sole traders, however. It is the maximum sum that a company's owners might have to pay out to meet debts. The maximum being the sum that they invest into the business. So when it comes to businesses or types of businesses that have limited liability, they are only going to, when it comes to repaying debts, they are only paying back the amount that they invested into the business, and this, they cannot touch the person's personal possessions or anything of the sort. It is just why invested into the business, and that's it. So let's say that you said, as we established earlier, you wanted to start a bakery. And then you have a friend over here and he's saying, me too. I actually have a building we can use. Right now it's not doing anything much. Like it's kind of empty. We could add some, we could do some we could refurbish it, we can change it up, we can, put in the all the things that we need, and we can start this business together. What kind of business would this be? Anybody?
Partnership.
Yes, it would be a partnership. And this is a business this is a business association, sorry, with 2 to 20 owners, and it depends on the country, it can be more or less, of an enterprise. Common This is a very common type of business, and it includes things like small shops, some vets and doctors and dentists set up partnerships to be the type of business that they choose to operate. So, in setting up a partnership, it involves creating a legal agreement, and this is called a partnership deed. And this is between the two partners or the 2 to 20 members. And we can see here that a partnership deed is a written agreement among the partners providing rules and regulations. It is signed by all the partners. It is stamped as per the Stamp Act. It is documented to prevent possible disputes and disagreements among the partners at future date. So you write this agreement, you sign this contract, and you, like, that is the basis, or that is the guide for how profits will be shared, and etc., etc. Because if you start a business with somebody and let's say you do a little more work than them, they may, that, like, let's say the agreement said, you getting 40% of the profits and that other person is getting 60%, but you decided that you can do a little more work a particular day, and you think that you should get more money or you should receive more profits. How that will not happen, or that cannot happen, because the partnership deed said or states that you will be getting 40% and the other person will be getting 60%, and it's usually The profits are usually distributed, based on how much you invested into the business. So you will have things like the name of the business, the name and address of the partners, the nature of the business, the date of commencement, duration or period, the amount of capital to be brought in by each partner, and the amount of drawings that may be permitted in anticipation of profits and the manner of withdrawals. So here are some types of partnerships. We have ordinary, and these are called unlimited partners, and each partner is involved in the management of the business and shares the liability. So these partners, when it comes to if they owe money, when they have to repay loans, they will have to touch on their personal possessions if they cannot repay, and they are involved in the management of the business. The limited, however, these are also known as sleeping partners, and these are not involved in the management or day-to-day operations of the business. They just invest. So we have advantages. We see here that there are larger amounts and access to capital compared to the sole trader. So because you have more than one person being able to invest in this business, you have more access to capital. You can work and produce on a larger scale compared to the sole trader. So because you have more partners, they may be, as you can see here, this ties into this next one. This last one here, it talks about specialization and division of labor. You may have persons who are able to market well, who are able to do marketing well, persons who are great with production or supervising, persons who are great accountants in this partnership. And you all pull together your knowledge and your experiences to form this partnership. Family members can join. The business affairs are kept private. Risks and responsibilities are spread amongst more people. So it's not only one person that has to bear all the burden. There are more persons. You can have more informed decision making. So as I said, with terms of like specialization and more experience and knowledge, because you have more persons, you are able to make more informed decisions. Is everything clear so far?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So the disadvantages include unlimited liability in the case of original partners. So only original partners, also known as unlimited partners, could experience the whole thing of unlimited liabilities. Then there are disagreements between partners, and like how I mentioned the thing with the partnership deed, where the person wants to get more because they worked more, but in reality, in the initial stages, you only invested 40%, and that's the amount of profits that you're getting. So there are a whole plethora of disagreements that can come up because you're dealing with different people, you're dealing with people of different personalities and different opinions and viewpoints, so disagreements will occur. Then there's the limitations of number of partners, so you cannot have like 50 partners, 60, 70. No, it's usually 2 to 20. If partnership is set up by a legal agreement, it will need to be reformed if one partner dies. So if a partner dies, I start a business with somebody or some persons, and one person dies, the whole paperwork has to be done over because the partnership no longer exists after it has dissolved. If the partner dies, and decision maker is slower, even though it's more informed, as the advantages said. It is more informed, yes, but the process is slower because you have to hear the viewpoints and opinions of everyone or of all the partners. So the next type of business that we'll be looking at is the cooperatives. Remember that these are all in the private sector, sorry. And this is a business organization formed by a group of cooperators who work together to achieve shared objectives or common goals. And the profits are typically shared among the cooperators. Right. So we have areas in which cooperatives are formed. We have agriculture, manufacturing, retail, and workers. So we have agriculture, and these are groups of farmers that take their produce to market or to the market. So they would take them to, they would set up a stall or something like that, and they will do this jointly and share the income from the sales. So you may, let's say you and your friends are farmers and y'all decide to go and set up somewhere in town or in the city, have a vegetable stall, and y'all put your produce there together to sell. That will be a cooperative, and you will share the income from the sales. Manufacturing. This is groups of small scale manufacturers that may combine together principally to market what they produce cooperatively. Then we have retail, and this is the purpose of forming a cooperative or retail cooperative is to sell items for what is seen to be a fair price and protect shoppers from large retailers who may not share their profits with their shoppers. So this is a society of independent retailers who pool their resources together to enable them to make bulk purchases, and they sell goods at a lower price to their members. So it is basically when different persons who may own some shops or whatever the case may be come together and they form a society where they can purchase from each other. So let's say you sell, you know, bath like cosmetics like soaps and toothpaste and stuff like that. And other person sells, groceries like food and bread and stuff like that. And then another person sells, things like tools like hammers and pipes and stuff like that. And y'all decide to come together, and when y'all are purchasing from, or let's say you have to purchase any of the sort, you will go to somebody that one of the persons in the cooperative to buy whatever it is, and you will get it at a reduced price than if you go to someone else. And then the last type is a workers' cooperative, and these are owned and operated by their employees. This allows the worker members, so they're workers and the members of the cooperative, to directly benefit from the business's success. Profit distribution to worker members is based on a combination of job position, hours worked, seniority, and salary. The advantages include things like the profits are shared among the members work collectively to solve problems, and employment is created for members. And the disadvantages include limited access to capital, because it's not like everybody has access to this cooperative and everybody's investing. No, you have a group of people and you have to use whatever resources they are able to provide. Members may lack managerial and technical experience, and that's similar, kind of like similar to the sole trader. So like you may have persons in a cooperative who are not, well versed in accounting or marketing, or they barely have any business expertise, and as a result, it can lead to the cooperative not being as productive as it should, and decision making is slower if members are consulted. So then the next type of business and the last type that we'll be looking at today is companies, are also known as corporations. And this is a group of companions who have come together to set up a business. For a business to become legally incorporated, it must be registered in the country in which the company has its head office. It becomes a legal separate body from the owners. So this is basically a group of people are companions. They may know each other, they may not know each other. They come together and they set up a business, and it has to become legally incorporated, and this is done through registering the business in the country of the head office, and it becomes a legal separate body from the owner. So the business itself is separate from the owner. So if you had to, like, the business had to fall into like being sued or anything of the sort, um, the charges will be pressed against the the business name, and not the owners of the business. So, the owners of companies are called shareholders. Somebody wanted to say something? Okay. So, the owners of companies are called shareholders. And these are basically persons who purchase ownership of a business. So they buy shares. I mean, you buy shares, you're basically just buying ownership of a business. They appoint a board of directors to make strategic decisions, which include how much profits to distribute to the shareholders, and these are known as dividends, and what direction the business should take. So the board of directors make the decisions within companies. So there are two types of companies. Does anyone know the names of these types of companies? Well, there are private limited companies and public limited companies. So there are two types of companies called private limited or public limited. And the main difference of between the private limited and the public limited company is the source of finance, so where they get their money investments from. Private limited companies are privately owned by founders, managers, owners, and the investment in the form of shares come from them. So these are the people who start. These are private private individuals. So they not any and everybody could just come and purchase ownership of the business. You know, you have to go through a process. You will have to they will have to the founders, managers, and owners will have to, you know, discuss certain things with you first, look at all sorts of other information to make sure that you are able to invest in this or buy ownership in their company. Public limited companies, these source their finance from members of the public who buy shares, and these members become owners of the company. So anybody can purchase ownership of the company. So you can see a table here just showing the differences between. We have for the private limited company, the financial support comes from private individuals such as family members or personal savings. However, with the public limited company, financial support comes from the general public or loans from financial institutions. Another difference is that for the private limited company, the shareholders have limited liability. Therefore, it is included in the company name, and liability is limited to the amount invested in shares for the public limited company. For private limited companies, there are only 2 to 50 shareholders. And for the public limited company, however, a minimum of 7 shareholders, and there's no maximum. So, like, literally anybody can invest and become an owner or buy shares and become an owner of a public limited company. And then the business is considered a legal entity for the private limited company. And then for the public limited company, the business is registered with the registrar of the company. So we have the advantages of the private limited company. The profits are retained by the owners. There's greater access to capital than other forms of businesses. There's a greater level of continuity even if a shareholder dies, and the original owners can stop outsiders from buying up their company. The disadvantages include shares cannot be issued to members of the public, and shares are not easily transferred without the consent of the board of directors. Decision making can obviously be slow because you have a board of directors who have to sit down and make decisions, and having a smaller number of people from whom to draw like money from or capital from or resources from may restrict growth. However, we have the public limited companies, and there are some advantages that you can see here. You can see that all the shareholders have limited liability. They have limited liability. There's greater access to capital, and the shares are transferable, along with the fact that the shares are sold to the public. Then some disadvantages include that the public has access to financial records. There's a lot of paperwork required. And if the business becomes too large scale, diseconomies of scale can occur. And diseconomies of scale is basically when it's basically the opposite of economies of scale. So you don't get the benefits of producing large scale anymore. So for example, you may have organizational diseconomies of scale where it is that the business becomes so large scale that you are not able to manage properly, you know, lines of authority and stuff like that. They are kind of like messed up because it's just too much going on. So it can become too large, and as a result, the business can experience this economies of scale. And the last disadvantage is that detailed accounts must be kept. So, like literally every transaction, etc., have to be kept, and the disadvantage of that comes is a lot of work, especially if you do not have a limit on how many persons can be an owner of your company. So that's it for this evening. I hope that everything was clear and concise. Do you all have any questions? I am taking this silence as that is a no. Next week, we will be looking at the types of economies. Remember that if you need to go, you could go back over the notes there in the chat. You can also find the videos on YouTube, PCSG Family. I think that's the name of the YouTube channel. No, Private Caribbean Study Goals. So that's the name of the YouTube channel. And there's some 4th form and 5th form videos for POB and other subjects. So yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for your participation, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye, Miss. When will you be posting this sites?
I will post them. No, I will post them. No, I'll post this one. No, I'll download it and
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Okay, bye, miss.
All right, goodbye.